Hello there. I've dug out my Sinclair ZX81 to have a play with today. Something I picked up in, when did I get this? I'm going to go with 2009, I think, when I bought this. I think it was about £40 I paid for it with this. A printer, which didn't work, and a tape recorder, which didn't work. So yeah, we'll have a little tour around it, and then I want to do some work on it, see if we can get it to run a little bit better. Because it does work kind of, but it's got one of those composite mods, the same as you do on a Spectrum. It just gives a very dark picture, so it's almost unusable. Anyway, yes, my ZX81, the box is in really poor condition, but well, it's nice to have it anyway. So, very 80s looking art on the box as well. And if we go to the back, they actually included the setup instructions, how to plug it all in. So, that's how simple that is. Right, let's dig into it. See, there's bits of polystyrene everywhere now. It really is in poor condition, this box. Yep. Some Sinclair branded foam. And the machine. So, the machine itself, which is actually in really nice condition. So here's the machine in all its glory. They were released in March 1981, and it was the successor to the famous ZX80, which was the little white machine. And the interesting thing with these is you could buy them either a complete unit or you could buy them in kit form. It's got quite a nice black plastic injection moulded case. That was designed by the late great Rick Dickinson, and it actually won a Design Council Award. It's quite a nifty thing. So let's have a little tour. So, RF out. Here are microphone sockets for the saving and recording. And 9 volts DC, and they are all little jack plugs. Expansion slot on the back for any RAM packs or printers. Nothing on the other side, nothing on the front. So these were, certainly in Britain anyway, one of the first computers that were sold out of the high street. I think W.H. Smith were probably the first to start selling these. And I would say it marked a turning point in home computing, from it being from the hobbyist who would order their computer online and potentially assemble it themselves, to the mass market, really, who would could walk into a shop and purchase these things right off the shelf. It's got a whopping 1 kilobyte of RAM, which is officially expandable up to 16K. I say officially because I do believe unofficially people have managed to expand them further. Runs a Z80 processor, which is clocked at 3.5 megahertz. It's a monochrome display. It's only black and white. There is no sound, and it does have this sort of membrane keyboard. So if you're a touch typist, tough. Let's have a little poke around inside and see how it's put together. There we go. So there it is in all its glory. That is, I imagine, a hand-drawn PCB layout. That would be the processor. That would be the ROM, I think. That's the ULA. Now the ULA, the uncommitted logic array, is a custom Sinclair chip, and that takes a lot of functions that were previously done by many off-the-shelf logic chips and puts them all together, so it makes the machine a lot more cost effective. In fact, this thing only has 5 chips in it. So as I said earlier, this was a replacement for the Sinclair ZX80, and in terms of functionality it was almost identical, really. But just for comparison, I do have a Sinclair ZX80 here. So we've got a very similar membrane type keyboard. The case is different. The case on the ZX80, that was vacuum formed, whereas it on the ZX81 injection molded. But I think the biggest difference is with this chip here, the ULA, which combined a lot of functions that would have normally been spread out across a lot of off-the-shelf parts. The ZX80, there is no ULA. So, although in terms of functionality they're almost the same, you can see they've got an awful lot more going on in there. So just for comparison. Yeah, that's why computers have ULAs. Because your manufacturing costs go down, I would imagine reliability goes up as well. There's less to fail. But yeah, that's a busy board, considering in terms of functionality it's nearly identical to this one. So like a lot of old Sinclair stuff, when I bought the machine, the keyboard membrane was dead. So reproductions are available, so I bought one and fitted that. And these are really, really simple membraney type things, and they're actually sticky back on them, and that's how they attach to the case. This one also had this keyboard stuck to the top of it as well, which is just to give the keyboard a bit more of a, make it a bit more tactile. And it's a very, very simple thing, just plastic spring-loaded keys. And that just pushes down on the membrane. Personally, I'm not a fan of these things, so when I changed the membrane I didn't bother refitting it, but I've kept it in the box and I'll keep it with the machine. But yeah, this and other things were available to make the keyboard a bit better, up to and including entire new cases that you would put your motherboard in, and you could have a proper mechanical keyboard as well. This was probably the cheapest way of doing it though. I'm not a fan. So anyway, why is this thing in bits and why is it on my bench? Well, I want to do a couple of things. First of all, I want to try and build a circuit that will give me a better composite picture. It was RF, but the RF modulator wasn't working when I bought it. I couldn't get a signal at all. So I did a very quick and simple wire bypass, just from the composite output signal straight out the back. It kind of works, it just gives a very dark picture. It's not really usable. So I want to see if I can improve on that. I also have a RAM pack for it, which I bought about a year ago. It doesn't work, it's never worked since I've owned it. I wanted to see if I can do something with that. I'm not optimistic, you'll see why later. So, let me break out the soldering iron. I've got some components to make a video circuit with. Let me get cracking on that. So this is a circuit I found on a forum. How well it's going to work for me, we shall see. Just a very, very simple thing. It's just effectively a transistor and a couple of resistors just to add a bit of amplification to the circuit. Hopefully that'll work. But I do believe with different ULAs, earlier ones, it may not, and I think I have an earlier ULA in this, so we'll see. We'll see. Really, really poor amateur soldering. Well, let's hook it up and see what happens. Okay, so that's one jerry-rigged mess. Obviously I won't be leaving it like that if it works. I'll tidy it up, but I just want to test it and see if we get any sort of output on the TV. Let's give it a go. Well, it works, but it's a bit If anything, that's a bit too bright, so I think we're going to have to start playing about with resistor values. But, well, at least it works. There is actually a little K there, you just probably can't see it. Okay, let me see if I can play about with that. Okay, attempt number 2. I've temporarily bodged a resistor in. I'll just see if that darkens the picture up a little bit. Obviously this is all temporary, just in case you think I'm some sort of hack. Although in your defence, you're probably not far off the mark. Yeah, okay, let's see if that improves things. Right, attempt number 2. Oh, yeah, okay. That, I would say, is considerably better, and that is perfectly legible. Maybe it's still a little on the bright side, but you know what? It's close enough that I don't think I'm going to play with it anymore. That, to me, is a perfectly adequate picture for a ZX81. I am going to leave it at that. Right. I'll power this down, and I will look to get that ridiculous mess a bit more integrated. Right, so I thought for the neatest possible installation, I'd put the board inside the original modulator housing. It fought me a little bit, actually, but yeah, so what? Didn't work anyway. So yeah, if you're wondering why I've used such a physically large resistor there, that's because the sort of idiot I am. I ordered the wrong wattage value when I ordered it, which to say it's the right resistance that I needed, just the wrong wattage, but that's why. I'm an idiot. But it doesn't really affect anything. And look what I found under the modulator. I'm assuming they are somebody's quality control initials. I don't know. But they've probably been there since 1981. So what is that? JG? Who knows? Anyway, I'll get this all back together. Right, back together. So that's a bit neater than it was. Hopefully it'll all work, but well, you never can be too sure, can you? Let's give it a go. Yep. There we go. I'm calling that a win. Let's get it back in the case. Okay. At least my keyboard still works. So I've still got the RAM pack to look at, but it's getting late and I'm hungry, so I'm going to knock this off for today and go and get something to eat. And I'll see what I can do with this thing tomorrow. Right, okay, so it's the next day. Let's have a look at the RAM pack. So it's a third party one, it's a Cheetah 16K. I'll plug it in and I'll show you what I'm getting at the moment. Yeah. That's not a happy bunny. Well, let's dig into it. So yeah, I picked this up about a year ago. Sold as untested, which usually means it won't work. And it doesn't, so I can't really complain, I suppose. But it'd be nice to get it going. So I've already done a bit of work on it when I first got it and had no joy. I'll take you through that once we're inside. So, When I got it, all the capacitors were leaking. So I think I caught that in the nick of time. There wasn't any track damage, but there was quite a bit of staining. So replaced all of those. It still wouldn't work. So there was some logic. I already had the chips, so I replaced those. No joy. So then I moved to the RAM chips. Now it uses 4116 RAM. And the weird thing about these is they need 3 voltages to work. So you need your 5 volts, your minus 5 volts, and your 12 volts. Now, the ZX81 doesn't produce a 12 volt circuit, and I'm pretty sure this doesn't either. So where's it getting the 12 volts from to run? And the only thing I can think of is it takes advantage of the unregulated power supply from the ZX81. So it's classed as a 9 volt power supply, but because it's unregulated, it's going to kick out quite a bit more. Maybe it takes advantage of that, I'm not entirely sure. Anyway, I replaced those and it still won't work. There's a little op amp down there, that's the only chip I haven't replaced, because I didn't have one handy at the time, but have since ordered some. And you can't just buy one, can you? Oh no. Well, that's fine. I mean, I think it was £1.70 for all of those, and that included postage as well, so they may not be of the highest quality, but I'll try swapping one of those out, see if we get any joy. Then I might start taking some voltages and just see what's going on. What I could really do with is an oscilloscope, but, or at the very least a logic probe, but I don't have one, so, well, I'll work with what I've got. Well, fat load of difference that made. Let's take some voltages. Right, so what I've done is I pulled all the RAM chips out, took a voltage reading with the computer running. I was getting about 11.2 volts at the jack. So replaced all the RAM chips one by one, and the voltage reading didn't really drop. So it could be as simple as this is fine and the power supply just doesn't quite have enough power to run the chips properly. It could also be the case that because they've been running at 11 volts that they're all damaged as well, but hopefully that's not the case. So what I'm going to do is I think I'm going to put the output jack of this, I'm going to connect it up to a Spectrum power supply, something with a little bit more current capacity. I'll see if that makes a difference. Okay, I'm going to try using a bit of a beefier power supply, so I'll just swap the cables round. So this one, UK 700 power supply, and it will deliver 9 volts at 700 milliamps. This one will deliver 9 volts at 1.4 milliamps. 1.4 amps, do beg your pardon. Right, let's swap the cables and see if this makes any difference at all. Right, new PSU fitted with a higher current output, and I'm still getting the same crap. I am officially out of ideas now with this. Oh, this is becoming frustrating. I don't know what's wrong with it. I know when I pulled out the original chips, I checked all the traces and they were fine. I checked it all with a multimeter, it's got new capacitors. Passive components all look fine. Maybe there's a problem there, I don't know. The only thing I can think of is maybe it wasn't running initially because it was running on a reduced voltage. And maybe that's damaged the RAM chips. Now that I've got this bigger power supply, that shouldn't be a problem. And I do have more RAM chips I can fit and test. I'm just worried that if I do that and there's something else going on here, that I might cause some damage to those chips as well. I don't know. Oh, well, yeah. Do you know what? I'll throw them in and we'll see what happens. At least then I can say I've done my best. Thank God I put sockets in. Right, that's it. I give up. I know when to call things. Yeah, so that was frustrating. I mean, I did my best. It won't work. I mean, how far do you go with these things? I don't know. I may come back to it another time, but right now it's upset me and I don't want to look at it anymore. And if that sounds like a childish excuse, well, you're probably right. Anyway, now that I have a decent video output on this, I think I'll try some games. So these are the only ones I've got. So Orbit, Sniper, Meteors, Life, Wolfpack, in fact, in golf. Let's give it a go. Oh, yeah. I believe that's normal when loading on a ZX81. I hope so, anyway. Let's see what it does. Okay. Yep. I've no idea how to play this, by the way. Ooh. I don't know if that's working properly or not, but that's going to give me a migraine. They're running in fast mode, it must be. That's better. I don't know if that's a demo or it's a game and I'm supposed to be doing something. I've no idea. Okay, that's Orbit. Let's try something new. Alright, what's this one? Press to start. Press what to start? Anything? Okay. Again, I don't have the inlay card for the cassette, so I have no idea how I'm supposed to play this, but I'm just happy I can see something on the screen, frankly. Yeah, that's something else that's going to give me a headache. Let's just slow it down a bit. Okay. Are these demos or are these games? I don't know. Anyway, yeah. So we'll call that a mixed bag, really. A success with the video modification. Complete failure with this thing. And I'll wrap it up here. By the way, if anyone has one of these and they know what the potential issue is, please let me know. Yeah, I'm going to call it quits here, and thank you all very much, and I'll see you on the next one, hopefully. Bye.